Greetings, this is Marv Gardens reporting in on this Monday day. And how's everybody doing? Dang. Feels like Mondays are always the worst. But it's okay. I got just the type of discussion to perk you up. As you know, it's always Poly Mondays, and in Poly Mondays, we talk about political things. Those poly, those uh, 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 what you would call bureaucratic things in nature. So, let's get straight to it. Today we will be talking about essentially what you would call the worldwide politics. And politics is, often condensed. It's often cordoned off, sectioned off into various municipalities. It's never something that is it's never really something that's thought of as a universal concept, in the sense that one man's government doesn't run the world. And that's just a fact of life. But believe it or not, politics is essentially all united in it's a particular section, and that particular section will be people to people politics. And that's probably nothing new to you, but it can be, we can often forget ourselves when we take into consideration things around us and what's going on. So that is why I say that people politics is more political than you think it is, because you'll notice it when you interact with different people, because they'll interact with you different, and yada yada yada, and that's just their politics. But you'll never really realize that you've already become set in your own form of government. And I say this in the sense that we all have a idea of how we want things to be when we're on our own. And it's funny how as you know move on in life, you tend to include people who are of the requirements of how you know how they fit into your form of government. And this may not necessarily be acknowledged as a female habit, but oh boy, let me tell you something, brother. Every wise male is aware that female government can be very tyrannical at times. And that's not even a bias. If you don't agree, then you haven't lived long enough. But yeah, enough. We're gonna remove the magnifying glass from the females and go back to this people to people politics thing. But how it starts is you become comfortable with yourself, then you become comfortable with other people, and then once you become comfortable with other people, you start to include other people in what you're trying to do. And that's going to always be the experience is always going to be the say all be all for all people to people politics, because this now we can put females back in the positive light. Females know better than anybody else how impressions can be like a resume. You can look good on paper, but we'll never know until we throw smoke on you and tell you to get your hands dirty. And excuse the analogy if it offends anybody, but that's just the fact of the matter. And then once that experience test is either passed or failed, it's like you're being enlisted into someone's government, in the sense that it's like if a citizen had to apply for citizenship, like there was no such thing as a native born citizen. If every citizen had to pass government tests to be recognized as a what they would call naturalized citizen, then that's how this people to people thing works. And it's funny because it's almost like people tend to imitate the government, which is funny because you would think as inefficient as the government can be at times, those are the last people you would try to imitate. However, I feel like because the government and because people all have that tendency to govern themselves, that everything falls in a line. And it's when you think about it, government is essentially a it's not, people always look at government as leading back to what nation you're from, or who do you identify with as a political leader and all this other stuff. But it's not that. Government is essentially, well, it's two different ends to it. On one end, government is lending yourself to other people. On the other end, it's making people lend themselves to you. And that can be the hardest thing in the world, to get people to willingly lend themselves to you on any level, because as you know, they have their own idea of government, and that is where the breaks happen. People can often feel like they are not being represented well, and that manifests itself in what you would call treatment, and that can lead to conflict, like what you would call a disagreement between two parties. And that's so typical, it's atypical of any form of government. So to the reason why I even came to this point is that last time I talked about the political race, and it's funny how every political race is the same, because no matter who runs or is president, their competency will always be weighed on how they lend themselves to people. And it's funny also that most people look at political, the campaigns and stuff, as a bunch of politicians blowing hot air. But take into consideration, these people are spending money to essentially promote themselves to people they've never met or will never see in for the rest of their life. And that's like the silent battle of the politician. The fact that in order to the people will always feel like they're ill represented by somebody that's not their self. But what you don't realize is that you're not taking into consideration that the person is automatically ill representing themselves to themselves, trying to get you to allow you know allow this to work, to get this system started. And a lot of people miss that in their logic because, like I said, the inner person, the inner you is always always the invisible person in the room. Nobody's going to sit on a jury and see themselves in the plaintiffs in the defendant's chair, or be the judge and see themselves as the judged. And I feel like this is key to why politics is always so finicky and always so essentially I would say reckless in nature, because you'll say things about people that you don't even understand, because if you understood what you was talking about, what you're insinuating, you wouldn't say them. And I'm not trying to call nobody stupid, because I'm the last person who's going to call somebody stupid. But what I'm saying is that you shouldn't turn politics into a juvenile sport. And I say that in the sense that people can often at times ask the wrong questions instead of the right questions. And the wrong questions are always focused on irrelevant personal information, or essentially a mud flicking contest. And this has nothing to do with the politicians essentially interview with the politicized. That's another new word. Don't worry about it. But the key to good politics is pushing somebody's comfortable zone, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean trying to make it a are you a Jesus contest, which is what I have been seeing. People are more focused on trying to make politicians look like they need to be a man of the cloth versus a man of the state. And this can oftentimes throw everything off, because this is your chance to make somebody jump through hoops, and you're making them go backwards, essentially. Because if I wanted somebody to tell me their life story, I would ask them for their biography. If I wanted somebody to prove that they're a good person, I will look at their charity, their service, volunteer. If I wanted them to be honest, I would just keep asking them questions. You see what I mean? Like, people often take the opportunity of dealing with a politician and turn it more into a social networking event. And I say social networking event not in the sense of taking a selfie with a presidential candidate in the background. I'm talking about a social networking event, in the sense that people are essentially trying to basically look for people to entertain with them, the essentially the ridicule of a person. And there are ways to do that, but not in the sense of focusing on things that have nothing to do with what you're talking about. But that's just me politicizing a political situation. So there it is, just using the knowledge and in the midst of the process. But back to the people, it can often at times be very contradictory at how people govern themselves versus other people. And I feel like that's just a indication of another thing I talked about before, which is absolute power being a corrupter of judgment, in the sense that people will purposely make bad judgments just because they know they have the opportunity to, versus making the right judgments and being a good political figure, not only to other people but to themselves. And I feel like that's something that everybody's guilty of at some point in their life, because when you have the leverage to do the right thing and you don't do it, the next question is, do you have the leverage to take the fall for what you're purposely doing? And it may sound like I said it wrong, but you need to understand that having the leverage to do the right thing is not the same thing as being leveraged to do the right thing. And I feel like that's a very serious point of politics, that people often forget that when you have the opportunity to do the right thing and you don't do it, doesn't make that moment any more significant, because you'll get that back when you're leveraged to do the right thing and you have to do it. And I'm not trying to go back to an argument about being a good Samaritan. What I'm trying to say is that in the name of good politics, it is to your advantage to use leverage when you have the ability to. So if you are presented with an opportunity to be a good governor of yourself and of other people, you should do that. And I feel like so many people miss this point. And there is no essentially right. That's another thing that makes politics kind of a opaque topic, because there is no right and wrong politics. And I say this because whether you treat people or whether you mistreat people, you'll still make them do something. And that's I feel like that is the third eye of politics. The idea that governance is never dictated by anything other than the governed. And that can definitely at times make people wonder, like, if that's the case, then what is the point of having a political figure? And the point is that you need somebody in your at some point in your life to show you yourself. And how they show you yourself is that like I said, whether they treat you or they mistreat you, you're gonna always at some point or another go back to yourself and reflect. And from that reflection, you determine whether your politics are similar to theirs or whether they're different. And depending on that judgment right there, you'll always figure out what type of government that you support. Because, essentially everybody is a proponent of the republic. But the republic is not the same thing as a democracy. A democracy is blind to utilitarianism, something like that, utility. A republic, on the other hand, understands the power of utility and uses it for that cause. And people can often, misjudge utility as a righteous cause. You can't see me doing I'm doing little finger motions as to make my point that a righteous cause has no place in politics. And that may sound crazy as an American. Nobody else. We can't talk about nobody else right now because this is America. This is American radio. We don't talk about nobody else's government because I don't even have the citizenship experience to talk about something. Talk about a political entity I have never experienced before. So, in an American perspective, the righteous cause has no place. And I feel like as a nation that is a republic, I say republic because I just gave you two definitions on the republic and the democracy. America is a republic because politics is always moved in America with a purpose. And that purpose may not always be to the benefit of everybody, or let alone mankind. We're not even going to entertain that. But it's always moved with a purpose, and that purpose will always benefit, even if people do not understand the benefit. You could go the rest of your life and not understand how American utility has made a benefit, but you'll know that benefit is there. That's all you need to know. And going deep into American politics, I find it annoying at times to see the intermingling of religious values in politics, because it's like insulting the government. It's like saying it's like you're basically saying I don't know the difference between church and state when I clearly do. And that may have been the motivations of that's my thought. I missed that thought before. That may have been the motivations of the original politicians of the Americas, United States. But that, as we have seen, is an obsolete concept. You cannot say that every American is religious, but you can't say that all religion is political in America. And that's just a truth for the fact of the matter. Now, a lot of religious people may have just got offended that I basically just said that religion is dictated by a man-made concept. But if you've been listening, I just told you that politics is not government. Politics is people-to-people relations. And as an organization that is focused on people-to-people relations, you can understand how you fall into the very large umbrella of politics. Like, if a person, the only way to not fall into the into politics umbrella is to essentially either be a recluse, be a undeveloped nation, be a live off the land type of person, like a farmer or something, somebody who doesn't rely on people commerce to feed themselves. Like you see what I mean? Like somebody who is separate from that people to people argument. And the argument is that people don't rely on the government, they rely on people. And I feel like that is a very important statement to make, because I like to pride myself on the fact that I do not associate or affiliate with the government. I do not draw any distinctions between what it means to be government and what it means to be me, because even that is a relation to the government. So what I'm trying to say is that this may be Poly Monday, but this isn't a what you would call a revolution radio. So with that said, American politics is very essentially people necessitized. And I say that because if people didn't rely on people, then there would be no need for an economy. There would be no need for business. There would be no need for essentially projecting a societal life. And that's just a cause and effect relationship. You know, once people started to work together on a higher level in the form of people creating technology that people wanted, then people got a lot more involved in how they interacted with each other. Then people got a lot more involved in how they deal with each other. Then people got a lot more evolved in you know, how actions and decisions could affect more than one person. So, you can take it as you will. I can't critique you or tell you how to do that. I can say, though, that politics is very deep. And once you understand its deepness, you can engage people on a different level. And, the next tempted opinion to appear would be that politics is essentially the science of using people. The problem is you can't use people if you yourself are not usable, and that is a refuelable source of politics. Politics will never be an empty equation. there will never be a variable in politics in which things go to waste. Because, you know, people are a I hate to insult people that don't believe in a infinite source, but people are an infinite source in the sense that there will always be a unthought of use for people. And if you don't believe that, look at how life has I say devolved into a very scientific format. And I'm not trying to say that people are guinea pigs, nor am I trying to say that people are lab equipment. What I'm trying to say is that dealing with people has turned from Darwinism or survival into a very organized, a very driven pursuit. In other words, a science. And using people is not using people because, like I said, if you yourself weren't usable, how else would you get a person to be used by you? And you may ask yourself, what does it mean to be usable? And that is a very subjective question because as males and females, we have our images on what it means to be the perfectly usable person. And on a simple level, on a very simple universal level, a usable person is essentially a someone that can be recycled as a resource. And I say that in the sense that a person with no money can still be recycled. They can still be usable, provided that they are up to the task of being used. And that may sound like, duh, well, of course a person can be up to the task. You say that, but being used carries its own rights, its own honors, because that simple concept of being used makes the difference between whether somebody gets a good job versus the job they don't want. And I put it like that on purpose because there's no bad job. But that is a wisdom that will only befall people who are not winning the political game. And what it means to not win a political game is to, be at a point where people are not a resource to you. And if people are not a resource to you, you are losing the political game. And that's all I can say on that. But throwing around the idea of people as a resource can also piss people off as well, because that's like saying that a person is no different than a cattle or a pig or a bale of wheat. But it's so much deeper than that, because you could eat a hamburger for a day and be like, what was the point? You could eat a piece of pork for a day and be like, what's the point? A person will be around for longer than a day, and that's why they are a resource. Anything that has more than a single use is a resource. And that can this is turning more economic than social. I don't mean to do that, but I'm just trying to get the point across that there is no useless person in a sense, because like I said, you wouldn't, if I told you to think about everything you could use a person for, you wouldn't have enough time in the day to write it out, because if you said it out you will forget. um you could try to type it out, you could try to draw it out, you could try to there is no physical depiction of every use a person could be used for that will be listed, because taken in consideration, there is tech that has not yet been created. There are advances in physics that have not yet been done. There are challenges, there are problems that have not yet surfaced. And even on the most basic level, there are resources that we have not even yet used that may very well create that need for more people that others may doubt. So people as a resource is not at all an insult. It is a real world depiction of um how politics can essentially draw lines to everyone, by everyone, and make sense. Because politics is not even a polygon. It's not a there would be no shape to explain how any line can be drawn and connect and not connect and connect to other lines and still make a distinguishable entity. That is how politics is not given justice. But this is not trying to turn into a praise of politics, not at all. Investigating the problem of of politics in general, though, is not a it's not a feasible concept, because in my opinion, not even an opinion, it's just a fact of the matter. I never try to speak opinions neither. This is not a hear me out radio. This is all factual stuff, all more of a knowledge base, an extension of the internet in terms of information storage and information giving, because I am not a library, nor do I try to be a library. I'm not reading you word for word from a textbook or any of those other things. This is stuff that you will either understand or you won't understand, and that's just going to be your limitations as a person. But politics will always lead somewhere. They may not lead to the best places all the time. They may not lead to the worst places all the time. But they'll definitely take things somewhere, and that is the perfect utility of politics. The idea that letting someone lead is better than a bunch of people arguing. And that may at times be very difficult to allow, because if you try to apply that concept to like your child or something, that may seem like a very unorthodox concept. We're going to call it unorthodox for feeling's sake. But definitely politics can move things. And if it can move things, it can get things done. If it can get things done, it's better than doing nothing. And that's a quote from Olive Gardens. Don't take it. I'm gonna copyright it later. Nah, I'm just messing. But you know, politics can be very frustrating at times, because the little man will always be ignored by the multitude, and that's probably a good thing. And the reason why I say it's a good thing is because if people stop to listen to every rogue opinion, and I say rogue in a sense of an opinion that is not uh, that is not in the public forum already, then nothing would get done. So the reason why that's just a consequence of politics. Now, going back to American politics can at times be very popularized, in the sense that things that move America are always well known, or they don't have to be accepted. They have to be normalized, as I can explain it. And what that means is that when you deal with a person, take into consideration anything you are attempting to do with that person. You must ask yourself, before I do this, well, can this be interpreted as what you would call um a fundamental move? And fundamental not in the sense of relating to you or to them in terms of were you born or raised with this, in the sense that in a large population, how many people will be okay with this? And I know that can be very uh, mathematical, because it's like making you do extra thinking, but it makes the difference. This is like simple. This is like, I'm like a coach right now. You don't have to listen to me. You don't need to listen to me. But if you do listen to me, you can't say I ever told you wrong. So it's like, I feel like that's the problem with American politics, because it doesn't have to be that there is no radical idea. It's just that because of American utility, it can be hard to introduce new ideas. And that's just a hidden nature of American politics. The idea that essentially every American is a fundamentalist, and that's just or a traditionalist in politic terms. And that's just a fact of the matter. And people can at times try to entertain the idea that America is a excuse me. People can try to entertain the idea that America is a liberal country. but in reality it's not. Now, this may sound like I am down talking American politics, but in reality I'm clearly not. I'm clearly illustrating for you that America is it hasn't left its 20th century habits. And you know, that may sound like a surprise given the influence of pop culture. However, pop culture is a very, very, very small um point on the size graph of America. And I'm not here to give a political overview. I am explaining American politics as they are supposed to be explained because, like I said, I can't tell another country's politics about what they are, but I can tell a country's politics about, you know, my politics, the stuff that I have to take into consideration when I deal with people. And what comes with a traditionalist point of view is the idea that you know the same old always works, and until it doesn't work, you don't need to change it. And I feel like that's probably a common value, but that's it can you don't really feel the effects of a traditionalist perspective until you realize your perspective isn't traditionalist. And that may mean nothing to no one, or it can mean something to someone. I'll never know. But that's just a tip for anybody who considers themselves an open-minded individual. And you know that is just a more of a summarization. But you know, breaking back into the general sense of politics, you must understand that change is no longer the face of politics. Politics has moved from seeking to revolutionize the world to seeking to normalize the world. And what that entails is that people should get used to assuming people in terms of you know what you would consider normal. And that can be a terrible piece of advice, because if someone decides that stupid is normal, then there you go. But with no jokes aside, I feel like that is the political attitude of today. The idea that there is no special person. And that can sound like I'm insulting people, but I say that in the sense that you should never try to entertain the idea of a Superman. There we go. And for those that don't watch the comics or watch the movies or yada yada yada, understand what I mean by Superman. You should never try to make someone stand out. You should always use typical things to essentially build a person's character, because you're not doing anybody a favor when you insinuate non non uh, uh when you insinuate unorthodox things, when you put unorthodox ideas into your head, when you when you essentially paint somebody as a individual. And I say that with the sense that it is a easy American experience to get this point across, that what fits in will always smooth over, and what doesn't fit in will always stand out. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for my supporters, who I will now be listing. Shout out to Juanita Hooper. Shout out to Shamia Skinner. Shout out to my anonymous patrons. I also accumulated another anonymous patrons today, so I do see that people, I don't know, maybe y'all feeling like I want to stand out, which is very American. This is just like, see, I didn't just waste your time. I'm living the politics that I just talked about. And that doesn't mean to there I go again. I'm also using the politics I just did. That doesn't mean that the people I did shout out are the standout. I'm just saying that it is a very, if you're an American, then you already know that it's a habit to stand in versus stand out. So, for my supporters that stand out, much love to you. I didn't mean to make you stand out. You stood out. There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't do anything wrong. You're the best. No disrespect to my anonymous patrons who felt like, not standing out was important. But by the nature of this shout out, you stand out. But it's okay. I'm going to normalize you, my supporters, my beloved supporters. I'm going to normalize you. I'm going to Americanize you. We're going to make you a model American citizens in time. So with that said, I look forward to more supporters, and have a good day.